Good morning and welcome to the Solita crash course of data catalogs. Welcome both on-site, where we have already more than 500 people, and also on-site here inside the room. Who are we? We are Solita, and we are going to present to you today what we have learned in our customer cases around data catalogs. But first, a few slides of who we are. We were founded back in 1996. Today, we are more than 2,000 employees, and we are working across 8 countries in 20 different cities, and we are a data company. So we work with software, we work with strategy, data, design, cloud, and connectivity. And just to show you a little map here, these are the countries we are working from at the moment. So I'll leave that for a sec so you can see. Today I have with me Juha-Pekka, who is our data catalog lead in Finland. He's also a very great data advisor and one of the tall ones I took with me today, even taller than the poster. So that's a nice, good start.
Yeah, and together with me here is Diana, who is leading our Danish data management related practice.
Good. So before we delve into the slides, a short agenda, talk about use cases. Why do we need data catalogs? What is driving us towards implementing data catalogs? What is the past, the present, and the future of data catalogs? And also the insights we have gained with our customer cases. So different insights we have grouped into 4 different categories we'll go into. And in the end, also, how do we do this in a practical manner with business involvement? So first, these business case driven use cases which drive us towards data catalogs. So these are use cases we see in our everyday life, every day we work. And one of them, which we probably all know quite a lot about, is reports. We have reports everywhere. We have multiple versions. We have multiple stakeholders, different levels. Could be mid-management, could be top management, and also down the line. But we want to increase the visibility of these reports. So instead of creating multiple reports and probably also in a little bit slightly different versions and so on, we want to have one overview and streamline the report finding and usage in the end. So who owns the data, the report, who is it for, and how to get access to these. That is what a data catalog can help you tell any more about. And the second one is a data set. And before I delve into that, a data set is just a collection of data for different purposes. It can be many different things for the organization. But what we want to find is the most appropriate data for a specific purpose. So we want to reduce the time spent expanding these data, explaining these data as well, and reduce also the risk that we duplicate a lot of data and that we have one view. So again, what field should I look for? What does it look like, for example, in a SAP system? And how does it look inside a Power BI? How can I find what is the terminology around these data sets as well? So that's the second one we can use for the data catalogs. And the third one is also for KPI, also known as key performance indicators documentation. Having a single source of truth for these KPIs. They are normally scattered across the organizations. It might be different representations. How were it calculated? Has someone used it in some kind of report? How is it linked to other stuff? How can I trust this KPI as well? And the last one is also, which is a very important feature of a data catalog, is the data lineage. Where did data come from in the beginning? Where did it originate? Not only what is it in the business intelligence tool in the end, but also how did it start? How can we reduce time spent to track down these data sources, and where we find maybe also even data quality problems in the end. So these are just some few examples of what you can use a data catalog for, and we will get into way more examples during the presentation, but just as a starter before delving in. So overall, I'm not going to go through all of them, but overall, what is the value you can achieve when you have a data catalog? It's the understanding of your data. So it's alignment, it's an overview, it's a one-stop shop. We hear a lot of customers saying to the data inside an organization. It's also the classification of data. Is it sensitive data? Is there regulations that has to be taken into account? So we also can start trusting them. So for compliance reasons, regulatory reasons, also one of our insights we will share with you later in this presentation. Then it's also for the reuse and who is also the owner of the data. It could be for data analysis, and first, most important of all, is also self-service. So instead of running around in your organization asking six different people, where can I find the data, this should be a self-service platform where you can go in and kind of like a basket, you can click and say, okay, I need this, this, and this, and how can I get it, and who should I ask for access, and so forth. So also kind of like a data product thinking, and that we will also tell way more about later in the presentation. So that's just a little bit of a start. So the understanding, trust, control, and culture is the overall headlines when we work with data catalogs. So I'll hand it over to JP to talk a little bit about the past, present, and future.
Yeah, so those use cases Diana just presented, so those are the ones that are often associated with the data catalogs, basically in almost all of the cases we have with the data catalogs. But then the question is that what actually is a data catalog and how it is evolved, and we also take a quick glance that how do we see that what is the future steps for the catalogs. And to start with the evolution or roadmap, so how have we gotten here? So somewhere in the 90s came these first data inventories as the internet came up, and this more and more data was gathered by the organizations. So it wasn't enough to maintain this information in people's minds, but we needed some kind of inventory. And this is where the first those catalog pioneers showed up. Then going to the 2000s, we started to get rid of these monolithic systems in the more distributed environments. So the importance of data lineage arrived. So we need to be able to track that how the data is flowing across the organization. Then the next step was 2010 approximately, when we started to move to the cloud. We started this SaaS-based solution, servicification of things. So we needed the connectivity. We need to be able to connect to different data sources in order to harvest all the information from different sources. Then getting closer to the current situation. So a few years back, we started to go to this more towards this enterprise scale. So we understood that it's not enough to gather the data from a single business area or business unit, but we need this enterprise perspective. We need this common understanding on the data as well. So it's not enough that the single business area knows their data, but we need to scale that to the enterprise level as well. And during this year, what we have seen together with the customers, there's a really strong emphasis on this a business focus, so making catalog as business friendly as possible, because we have now come to the realization that it's not only data analysts, it's not only the technical users that are using catalogs, but it's even more the business people who should be looking for the data, and especially on this self-service side. So that is something that both the vendors and the customers have put in a lot of emphasis during this year especially. But then what is happening in the near future? So what we have already seeing some indicators of is this kind of AI enhancements coming to the data catalogs. So as the Gen AI and other AI topics are pretty much everywhere, those are also strongly taking over on the data cataloging area. And that's something that we will also come back later in the presentation, that what does that mean in practice. But then if we go even further in the future, and there has been some early indicators, is that we are moving even more towards these knowledge catalogs, which are essentially gathering all kind of elements of an organization, not just data, but also the business processes, the different kind of assets there is, the applications, the data products, all kind of different elements that are interlinked together in an organization. And we are trying to build this kind of knowledge graphs around the organization, and trying to build this a so-called digital twin of an organization. And that's certainly something that the data catalogs are in a position to evolve towards to. But that's something that will take time, but there is already some vendors that have come up with this graph-based solution to move to this direction. And then when we talk about the enterprise data catalogs, we need to define that what do we mean by the enterprise in this context, because there are different kind of data catalogs created for different purposes. There are also different interpretations of what is a data catalog. But when we talk about the enterprise data catalog, first of all, there is the coverage. So we need to cover all the different business areas and functions and not to be limited in a single unit. So we need to take into account and being able to build this so that we cover all the areas, and also we cover the enterprise scale as well. So it needs to be aligned on basically 2 levels. Then cross-functionality. So we need to be able to connect a large variety of different data sources. So many times catalogs are thought to be something that is built around data platform, and it is something that is like catalogs are evolved based on these data platforms. But we are also having like a broad variety of different applications and systems, especially on the operational side. There is the ERPs, CRMs, etc. And we also want to connect those. So we really need this kind of cross-functionality to make that happen. Then we need to have this data governance at scale. So there is some policies and standards that are applied to everyone, even in a big organization. So we need to be able to apply those everywhere they are like applicable. Then collaboration and communication. So this is something that we need to be able to do to like collaborate within a single business area, but also across the different business areas. And these kind of collaboration tools is something that makes a big difference when we are talking about this enterprise scale catalogs. And then scalability. So we are getting more and more data, more and more variety, more and more business areas. So the catalog needs to be able to scale to fit to those increasing demand of different needs. And yeah, then if we go to have a quick overview on the features of a data catalog, and within the core, there is certain features that are found pretty much in any data catalog in the market, or at least all the major players. And these are something that are like must-have features that are not really making a big difference in the competitive edge. So we have the metadata management, which is the core. So we need to be able to maintain the metadata itself. Then the connectors. So we need to be able to connect to the different data sources to actually crawl the data into the data catalog or push the data to the data catalog. And with the connectivity, there is still some competitive differences on which tools are supported by which vendors and technologies. And then business glossary. So pretty much all the catalogs have some kind of glossary of the different terms, that what are the most common business terms and how those are defined. Then some kind of search or discovery tool. So again, pretty much all the catalogs have in the front page some kind of search bar to search for the content of the data catalog, because that's one of the main purposes of that tool. Some kind of governance features. So I would say that the minimum required level of governance for the data catalog is some kind of classification on the ownership and the different roles. So naming that who owns a certain data asset, who is the data owner for a certain glossary term. So that kind of basic governance functionality is existing pretty much on all data catalogs. Then some kind of tool for building the data lineage. The scope might vary a lot, so it can be within just like a single platform, or it can be broader, but some kind of lineage tool is also existing in most of the catalogs, as well as then based on the lineage, running some kind of impact analysis, that where the data errors occur and what happens if some table is not right. And then the next layer is these more advanced features. And this is something that really starts to differentiate those different vendors from each other. So the first one is this UI, UX, so putting emphasis on the user interface and user experience. So making the catalog usable, making it business friendly, really like putting effort to the usability. That's some major competitive factor for many of the clients of us as well, because that's something that will really help on this like behavioral change when it comes to the catalogs. Then the marketplace, that's something that is also popping up more and more when it comes to this like data product thinking. So being able to actually connect this kind of marketplace to the catalog is an important feature now and in the near future, as well as this flexible meta model. So that's something that surprisingly few catalog actually support, is this flexibility on the meta modeling. And what actually is a meta modeling, Diana will get to that shortly, but that's something that is really important for many organizations, because that will change like whether the tool will adapt to the organization or whether the organization adapts to the tool. And of course, we want the tool to adapt to how the organization behaves. And then having these collaboration functions or features. So being able to collaborate, ask questions regarding the data, point out these data quality errors and such like ways of communication in the data catalog. That's also important and is not like existing in all the catalogs. And then some kind of data quality related profiling. So while fetching the data within the data catalog, also being able to understand like what is the quality of the data we are having in the catalog. And then the third layer is this more maybe a futuristic perspective. So these are the features that many vendors are currently working with or working towards, but this is not yet like having this larger attention. So first of all, there is this tribal knowledge sharing. So being able to share knowledge within your team, within your unit, within your business area, and then connecting that towards the enterprise scale. So having this kind of, some talk about this mesh catalog system, which is kind of a similar idea to the data mesh. So first you have your own tribe where you share the knowledge, and then you share the knowledge on the enterprise scale. Then having this catalog anywhere. So one of the fundamentals we are moving towards is that we are not trying to bring people to the catalog anymore, but we want to bring the catalog to the people. And in practice, this means that we want to integrate the catalog to these different systems, whether it's a Jira, Confluence, Slack, Teams, etc., or some reporting tools online. And I think the simplest example of this is some kind of browser extension you can install, and then this like extension will get the catalog information, for example, to your Power BI or Tableau reports. So you can see directly from the Tableau, for example, that what does this report mean, how is it defined, and then what are these terms in this report. So that's the simplest example of this evolution we are moving towards. And then the Gen AI. So as said, this AI is coming with the quite speed to the catalog market as well. And then the fourth one, which is related to this AI as well, is this knowledge graph. So we are getting more and more of these graph-based catalog solutions. But yeah, that's a quick overview on the features we are currently seeing and what is currently incoming within the data catalog market. And to get even a bit deeper on this, what are the capabilities that we are seeing that has the biggest request from our customers. So of course, first of all, there's the automation. So because maintaining a data catalog requires a significant amount of effort. So we need to automate as much as we can. And of course, we will never get to the point where we can automate everything, because there is this like the contextual aspects and this tacit knowledge within the heads of the people that just cannot like being crawled by a machine. But everything else we want to automate as far as we can, and we want to like limit the amount of the manual work within the data catalog. The second one is having the smart search. So we want the catalog to act similar as a Google. So we can write some keywords to the search bar and we will get the results, and the search engine will know that what we are actually searching. So it's like a similar to the Google. So we do not want to go to the second page of the Google, but we want to find the results immediately. And the same applies for the catalog. So it needs to be easily searchable. Then enriching the data in context. So as I already said, so we want to bring the data catalog to the people so that the people can use this like a content of a data catalog in the tools that they are using in their daily lives. Being community driven, so we want to give the responsibility of driving the data catalog from the IT people to the business people, because that's where the actual knowledge of things really is. And for that we need those collaborative features so that we can actually like make it more approachable. We need this UI enhancement, user friendliness, to get the business people actually on board with the data catalogs. And then the fifth one is this data marketplace. So getting access to the data should be as simple as possible. So having similar features that, for example, we have in Amazon is that you can browse the items, you can add them to your basket, and you can check out. And in the data catalog world, that is quite similar. So you have a list of data products, you select the ones you want to access, you add those to your basket, you click checkout, and then the access request is being sent. And for example, if the data is not sensitive, it can be automatically granted. Or if it's a sensitive, it can like send a message to some ticketing tool that will create a request to grant you an access. And then some person who is responsible for the data will review and then they grant the access. So having the easiness also on this accessibility and discoverability, that's the point of these data marketplaces. And then one slide regarding these technology selections. So when it comes to these different technologies, when it comes to these different vendors, what we have identified that these different catalogs can be categorized roughly in 5 different categories. And first category is this open source catalogs, being it Data Hub, Amundsen, Apache Atlas, etc. And the main point of those catalog is that they are really cost efficient. Of course, open source does not mean same as free of charge, but they are more cost efficient than some commercial tools. So those are really good for playing around, getting this like organizational knowledge that what does it mean to like run a data catalog, and like train this with maybe a little smaller investment. Then the second one is these more comprehensive data management platforms. So for example, Informatica, Atacama, Precisely. And the point of those are that the data catalog is just a part of the services of the like broader data management platform. And the best things on this kind of platforms is that they are really well interlinked. There is like a high connectivity and lineage capabilities, as all those services can easily communicate with each other. For example, if there's some integration capability, you can automatically get the lineage to the catalog. If there's some data quality features, you can get the data quality metrics really easily to the data catalog, etc. So the collaboration among those services is really like on a high level in these kind of cases. Then the third group is these technical platforms. So on Azure we have a Purview, on AWS we have a Glue, on Databricks we have Unity, And these are really technical platforms that are built on top of those, or catalogs that have been built on top of those technical platforms. And what does that mean in practice? So often they are rather cost efficient, but then the downside is that they are rather technical tools as well, as they are often meant for those like users of the technical platform. So there is the lack of user friendliness in many times on those platforms. Then we have these so-called big guns, so the big players in the market, Alation, Collibra, and those are really these like players that have been in the market for a long time. They have a really like a rich list of features, and there is a good level of connectivity, like really good library of different connectors, and all the other features are on like a rather mature level. But the downside is that there's also the cost factor, that as these are more mature, there is often like a higher cost associated with them. And then the fifth group, we name it to this like emerging technologies. So a bit newer players on the market that are bringing some new angle to the way we are seeing the data catalogs. And for example, Atlan, Data World, and Xenia are examples of such. So within Atlan, there is a lot of AI-based features, and within the Data World and Xenia, they are having this like knowledge graph and graph technology-based approach on data cataloging. And what does that mean in practice? So often, as they are emerging, the cost point might be a little lower, but then on the other hand, there might be some things that are not yet so mature as they are still like emerging and developing their platform actively. And yeah, that's about it. And maybe as a disclaimer, so these are like rough groupings, and when we are running these assessments of different technologies, we are building these criteria based on the identified use cases, and this list here is just a reference, and there might be like differences between or among these groups as well. But in general, it could look something like this. But yeah, that's about it on the catalog side from the technology perspective. And now we are going to move to some insights, and Diana will start with the meta modeling.
So first, insights, that's the most important learnings we had with our customers. So these are from actual customer cases, and we grouped them into different insights that we want to share with you today. And if you have any questions along the way, also online, just post them, and we will also follow up in the Q&A session afterwards, so you don't have to hold the thought all the way through. So first of them is meta modeling. And what is a meta model, first of all? It describes the core metadata of your data catalog. So it's the structure of your data catalog. So it's kind of an abstract model on a high business level. How do we bind together the entities inside the data catalog? And as a start, it's always simple. So we don't try to have a huge model and implement every corner at the same time, but we take it step by step. And we don't have to have it fully defined before we start implementation as well. So as also mentioned in one of the previous slides, it has to be flexible for most of our customers, because we don't want the tool to direct the way we want to organize our data. We want the organization to direct how we can use the tool. So what I have taken with me today here, or we have taken with us, is how do we actually do this? So most of us are very used to, and this is an example, so it's not exhaustive, it's an example. So most of us are used to what we see here on the left side, on the blue side, the technical layer. So we have applications, it can be an ERP system, CRM, and so forth. We have databases, schemas, tables, and even application also has APIs connected to it. And as we all know, application exists of data elements, and also data products has become a more used term within the data mesh domain. So data products combine these data elements. So the blue side is terminology we are very used to, and this is very easy from a technical point of view user to start drawing up in the meta model. But then we also have the yellow one here, and that's more the business layer. So as also mentioned, one of the key functionalities of an enterprise data catalog is the business glossary that documents business terms. It also belongs to domain, and on purpose, it's domain here. It could be data domain, business domain, capability domains, a lot of domains for different customers. And also we have business concepts and business elements. So this is where we start linking together also the business world back to the technical world. So these are examples, so there could be many more lines that the concepts is also mapped to the tables or so forward, but wanted to take a few more examples with us. So from a data governance point of view, metadata is also important. So we could have an owner committee of some sort that wants to start structuring these data so they own the domains. Then we have data stewards. It could also name many other things, but data steward is a term we see more and more used. So the owner committee appoints these data stewards, and these are the ones that actually searches through, for example, the business glossary, along with other regular users. They also manage the data products, and they also are connected to the API. So these are the one that has the overview of what kind of data we have within a specific domain. Normally, we also appoint a data steward for one domain only, so one person doesn't have to know all of the data inside the organization. Then we have data owners, data consumers, and many, many more. Last part is also the regulatory points here, the green part to the right side of the picture. And here we link them to the business terms. So as we all know, GDPR came along, almost 10 years ago. And now we can also classify our business terms if it's GDPR. AI Act is coming up in a few years, or let's see how far when it comes along, and many other regulatory compliance demands. That is an insight I will share after the next one that I'll hand over to JP. So this is just an example of a metadata model. And then now let's talk about this part where we say data products. So JP for the data products.
Yes, so data product, quite hyped, or even like a term that is occurring, I would say pretty much 90% of our data catalog cases. At some point there's a question that how do data products and data catalogs, how are they interconnected? But first of all, let's quickly check that what do we mean by speaking of data products. So yes, data product is something that is trustworthy, reusable, and easily accessible. And myself, I like to refer to these like so-called FAIR principles that are created. So making data findable, interoperable, accessible, and reusable. So this is basically the same thing. So making the data so that it can be easily used. There is like a servicification. So we serve the data as a service from the producers to the consumers. So that's the basic idea. And if we continue, so it has been designed, published, and documented. So we need some kind of life cycle management on those products as well. And it needs to serve the needs of a specific data consumers. So there needs to be some kind of need so that we can create the product to serve some kind of like a consumption. So this is basically the same idea as on the traditional supply chains. There is this like a data version of it called data supply chains, where we start to think about these data producers, data consumers. How do we move the requests from the consumers to the producers, and so that the producers can produce better data for the consumers. But then when it comes to the data product, there is often some requirements attached. So what differentiates data product from a traditional API or database view, or basically any data set that we are serving to some other party? So there needs to be some structure around it, some kind of list of requirements. And here is a list of those so-called must-have requirements. So it needs to be designed for some need of a specific customers. It needs to have an owner who takes care of the development and life cycle of that named product. It needs to have some kind of contract between the producer and the consumer to understand that, okay, what is really required for the producer so that it can serve the customer. and the producer needs to be like there's something like almost an SLA that we can ensure that the data produced is really on a sufficient level for the consumers. And then there must be a steward who is responsible for the metadata and quality part. Then it must be published in a data catalog. Yeah, that's definitely something that tightly links it to the data cataloging. And it needs to be clearly documented so that it's well understood. So these are those like must-have in this example. And then on the right-hand side, there is some should and may-haves. So it should be be owned by some business function. There should be a version control in place. It should be accessible through some authorization framework. It should be available in some kind of data warehouse or standard API. There should be some KPIs for monitoring the data quality, and it may be served to the external customers through an API. And these are just examples. So as a disclaimer, each organization needs to think that what does the data product mean in their own context. But this is rather like a generic example collected by our insights that what it could mean to have a data really productized. And next, we are going to take a look at this like a high-level architecture example we have created for one of our customers in the industrial domain. And especially these 5 aspects are something that we are considering on that architecture. So how do we publish the product in the data catalog? How do we document it? How can we put the version control in place? How can we make it accessible through some authorization framework? So this is something that is getting more and more like questions that how do we build the authentication for these data products? And yeah, and it should be available through a data warehouse or API. And this is how the architecture looks on a really high level. So on the left-hand side, we have some kind of data platform. It has a data lake, data warehouse. It has a database that are containing those actual data products. And then there is a data product API. And yeah, it is getting the feed from those operational systems, the data platform. There's nothing special on that. And then this data product API is connected to the data catalog as well as the API management. So within the API management, that's the place where the API is actually like managed and published and cataloged. And then the content from an API catalog is connected to the data catalog through this API glossary that is then also connected to the data product glossary. So now we have a place where we have all the data products listed within the data catalog. And the reason for that is that there might be also some other places for this kind of data products. So that we want to build a single glossary where people can actually like see all the products listed. Then there is some other data catalog components, data dictionary, business glossary, for example. And then comes the data marketplace. So the data products from the glossary are linked to the data marketplace, which is one of the core components of a data catalog. And as being said, it lists down all the data products so that the user can select the ones they want to get access. So say they see that which data products there are, so they do not need to like crawl the whole content of a catalog because that's an ocean of metadata. So we want to limit the see or the view only to the data products. And then this data marketplace is connected to the ticketing tool where these requests can be sent directly from the marketplace. And then this ticketing tool is communicating with this identity and access management, and there the access to the data products are actually granted. And then from the data product API, the data products can be utilized by these business data services, being it reporting, advanced analytics, or something else. And then there are some other like metadata related tools, data quality monitoring, for example. That is something that should definitely be connected to the catalog as well at some point so that we get the data quality metrics. And then there is the data modeling tool, which should share these same like business glossary terms in order to make the conceptual modeling based on the same concept. So we do not have like two separate places for the business terminology. But yeah, that's a high level example of how we are designing to connect the catalogs with the data products in practice.
One of the other things our customers is asking quite a lot about is also regulations and compliance these days. So regulations and compliance is a crucial issue for all of us in a data-centric organization. And what we want the data catalog to do is to ease this burden. So where do we document these things? So identify the data that is subject to regulations, and also so we can adhere quickly to procedures around regulations. So flag the data is something we can do within the data catalog, and also manage the life cycle of data. So at what stage we have different regulations. And we took a slide here to share with you for different types of regulations. This is not exhaustive, but some of them examples. So the Data Act is one of them, like who can use and access data from different connected devices. So here, especially the data lineage function, how to connect data is in place. But for all of these regulations and compliance is also about classification of data. Has to be classified into certain sensitivity categories or different intervals. The AI Act is not in place yet, and some say it's in 2025 or maybe it's 2030. We don't know yet. Let's see where it's going. But probably we will also use that for more AI. We can see that AI models needs a glossary, so we have to store that somewhere. So why not also use the data catalog that we use for all the other things? Risk calculations, like we also have from the finance sector, will probably also affect the AI Act here. But these are more speculations because it's not in place yet. GDPR, we know, so data classification for personal identical PII data information. So we have to figure out where's the sensitive data, where should we mask, is there any names, is there telephone number, social security, and so on. What we can do with the standard machine learning algorithms is crawl through these things and see where should we mask these kind of data. So having that also inside the data catalog. Then there's also more industry-specific regulations in banking, in health, and in forest, and also in health for the clinical trial regulations. They have now more and more procedures that we need to harmonize these processes around the clinical trials. So that's also classification on top of health data. Other examples is the ESG, which is also classification, that is environmental, social, and governance domain. And we all have cybersecurity issues and regulations to take care of. And again, data classification here, like what kind of security level should the data comply to, understanding the lineage back to the source, and also figuring out if there's breaches along the way. So these are just a few examples, and probably the list could be longer and longer and longer. But that's what we help our customers with, also figuring out when does it make sense to classify our data for different purposes. Last insight we have is this whole new AI and data catalogs, and also the other way around, data catalogs and AI.
Yeah. So there's two aspects when it comes to this like relationship between AI and catalogs. So the first one is that how AI will enable better utilization of data catalog, and then we turn it other way around. So what can data catalog bring to the table to enable better usage of AI and this especially Gen AI? So first, what does data or AI bring to the data catalog? So it can bring automation and this like intelligence to the classifications and categorizations, so that people do not need to do that much like classification and building these taxonomies from the scratch, but the AI can assist. So the easiest example is that if we have like data coming from a single source and we have 3 assets with the names steward and owner, and 2 more data assets coming from the same source, so the AI can then suggest that maybe these should have the same owner as they are coming from the same source. So that's a really simplified example. But this kind of intelligence for the suggestions, that shouldn't this be like that? So that's definitely one thing that the AI will start assisting us when we are utilizing these data catalogs. Then enhancing data lineage. So often problem with data catalogs is that there is those like black boxes when it comes to the data lineage. So we are losing the visibility or track of the data movement at some point, whether it's some system that is like a black box from the database level that we cannot access there, or is it some like a integration system that the catalogs do not have connectivity towards. So as long as we are playing in the data platform, everything is quite smooth, as there is like you need to basically connect to Snowflake and you get all the logic on that data platform. You see all the tables and how the data flows in. But when we go like beyond that, it gets more tricky, and the catalog vendors are not yet so like comprehensively connecting to these integration tools to get these like data mappings and the integrations as part of the lineage. And that's when discussed on these like different technologies. That's, for example, something that these data management platform vendors do really well, as they are already connected their own integration capabilities to the catalog as well. But what AI can bring then in the table, it can help to identify that, okay, this could be the source and this could be the target based on the descriptions, based on the content of the data, and do those mappings to build more like complete data lineage. And then the third one is creating the descriptions for glossary terminology. So utilizing Gen AI to help people to create these glossary terms is something that will make life of the business people more easy, because often building some descriptions from scratch might be challenging, and it's a lot easier to get some template on what do we mean by revenue, what do we mean by a certain term, and give like Gen AI create the baseline and then start altering that. And that's something that we will have in place in the data catalogs already in near future. And then the other way around. So how does data catalogs make AI more efficient? So first and the biggest one is definitely these knowledge graphs. So as some say that the AI, especially these like large language models based Gen AI, it's often hallucinating. So it's making up stuff, or because it does not understand the context really well. And what the knowledge graph is, it's essentially something that gives context to things. It links to the other things that creates the context. So being able to link together these knowledge graphs and large language models, it will really improve this like AI to be smarter and more accurate. The second thing is giving visibility on the context used for the Gen AI. As now when we are trying these different like business cases with our clients regarding Gen AI, there is often some certain use case or some business area that wants to use the Gen AI within their own context, whether it's HR, marketing, customer service. They want to kind of teach the catalog for their own content, and like linking that content to the AI, or even like documenting that, okay, which content belongs under HR or marketing. That's something that the catalogs can do, and that then builds the lineage so that we understand that which content is used to give context for this certain AI model. And then the third one is this AI model glossary. So as Diana mentioned, when we are moving towards this AI Act, we need to have somewhere a list down of our AI models, and we need to have these risk classifications on those AI models. And both of these are something that the catalogs can do, having this glossary as well as having this classification. So that's definitely one direction we might be moving into, as we are like having these different aspects, not only data in the data catalog. So the AI models could be one example of such. But yeah, that's about the insights. And now we go to the more practical level, and what we have learned to how to start this data catalog journey in a way that it is actually a business-driven like initiative. And first of all, what we want to achieve is this like a value driven approach on all the development. And what does that mean in practice? So we need to have some kind of vision, as in the middle in this picture. So how do we create value for the business with the data? And to understand that, we need to first understand what kind of market trends there are, what is the strategic focus, what are the business ecosystem look like. And that's something that after we understand that, we can build this kind of vision that, okay, what's the direction we want to go towards to? And then after we have that kind of vision created, we can start to think about, okay, what are the practical value creation opportunities that we can start forming, and what kind of capabilities we need to achieve that. And that's where the catalog comes into the picture, as it is one of the capability supporting this building of the value. And of course, we also need some kind of objectives, KPIs, to measure the way, and having the roadmap to know that in which order and in which timeline we do the different things. And this is just like a example collection of these like data catalog related tasks from different cases. But the point in here is that when we are designing the roadmap, we need to be able to link the data capabilities with the data opportunities. So as we build some capabilities, we need to understand that what opportunities are opened up for the business side. And the same applies for all the data work, but as well as data catalogs. So we need to understand that when we are implementing data catalog, when we are implementing certain features, being it data lineage, glossary, or some other data quality, what is the value we are actually trying to build? So it's not just a technical feature. And then when we go to the actual like project level, or implementing or starting this kind of data catalog project, what we have learned, and what Diana will shortly tell more about, is that it's not only the technical implementation project, but it's even maybe more this kind of service design or behavioral or organizational change track that needs to be taken into consideration, as it is rather huge change in the organization to start to use this kind of like data catalogs. But yeah, Diana, please continue.
Just stay on this one for a second, because we really easily get lost in these technical tracks, connecting to more data sources and getting a little bit fancy around the technology itself. But what we have learned a lot is that it fails in the end. So because nobody takes it into use. So getting this behavioral track started at the right from the start. So involve different stakeholders and start from the user perspective. And it's not easy, because we need to find the people, we need to find the use cases, and not just implement the tool. So a few things here. When we did it traditionally, we had a lot of technical enablement, all these requirements, and you have like a huge list of these in an Excel sheet, and you want to start implementing them, and then change management in the end. But instead, now we start engaging stakeholders from the beginning. So we actually understand the true needs, and not just implement yet another feature or yet another data source. So we do it for use case-driven prioritization. So taking one use case at the time, doesn't have to be the most complicated we start with. Could be that we just want an overview of the business terms, for example. And then also communicate our successes and grow these internal advocates. So it sounds easy to find them, but finding people, doing the communication, having a communication plan, educate, train, and coach takes a lot of time and a lot of stakeholder management. So, and also measure our KPIs based on this. So it's not only about what else we implement in the data catalog, but also what is actually changed from a behavioral point of view. So these are some of the few ones. And also, as we told earlier, have a user-friendly data catalog. So what we do is that we believe in incremental development. So if I go through this from the left side, we start with some kind of business domain, business A. We start with one use case. And as said before, it can be an easy one, just having a glossary on top. Then we find the people who should use these or want to use these terms, the enthusiasts, the data owners, the data stewards, and start communicating around where you can find these business glossary terms. Then we take the next use case, the next red bubble here, and then we put a data source connected to this and figuring out, okay, where can I find, for example, as I said at the beginning, the BI reports. Let's connect, for example, to Power BI or Tableau or other visualization tools. Then it could be quality tools, quality elements, and it can also be that we have another use case where we talk a bit more about the lineage. So where does the data originate from? So that was back to the data set. So, okay, what do I have in SAP and what do I have in BI and what does change in between? Also, if something goes wrong, how can we track all the way back and figuring out that? And in the end, the whole goal here is that it should be self-sufficient. It shouldn't be explained. It shouldn't be only technical users that actually can find the data. It should be available for all of the organization being a business user. And that's back to the meta model and why we also need business terminology and not only the blue side we saw from the meta model point of view. So yeah, we believe in start small, but we dream big. So we want to do, of course, what is needed for our customers, but we don't want to scare them away from the beginning and start with a lot of integrations. So we try to scale both in breadth and depth and do as good as possible. So the last slide I want to share with you is some success factors that and these are a little bit more on the softer side, some would say, but it's also the harder ones. So make this personal. Getting to know people is not an easy task. It's easy to sit and get lost in technology, but getting to know the users that actually wants and needs to use the data catalog and get their input from the beginning on. So make this a shared initiative together, so it's not just yet another tool. So awareness, again, as I said before, communication, make time in your calendar. So when people come and ask, and train them, get them with you along this journey as well. So these are a few ones of them. So it's much more about the behavioral part than the technology part. We have done that for many, many years, all of us. We can do that. But let's make it also a shared initiative for an enterprise data catalog and not just yet another technical tool. So with that said, if you start this data catalog journey, we created a data catalog guide. We also have the previous crash courses on this value out of data, so the strategy part that JP talked about before, and also how we connect this to the AI. So if any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're not further away than just a phone call or an email, both of us. With that said, I will hand it into the Q&A session, and I would like to ask if there's any questions on site first, and then we'll kick online afterwards. Then I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, I'm just checking that how do we turn this one on. There is the... Yes, now we are...
Many of the questions I get is, how do I get started? Like what is the first step, for example? And the first step is to not do all of these features that JP was showing in with the standard features, the next generation, and also in the future, but start small. So that's also connect to what I just said before. Start with just putting in your glossary. Start putting some data governance features on top. Who owns this? And also try to start connecting only one source. Try a standard connector. Don't try to develop something custom built as well. So try small, start small.
Yeah. So first question is, as of which size does an organization need a data catalog? What would you suggest to use if an organization is too small to use a data catalog?
If you're too small to use a data catalog, so first you have to figure out what is the use case. What is it we don't solve today? Is it because we have different numbers, different terminologies? Where do we want to start? And as you also said, let's start then with the open source ones as well and see, okay, what is it that we can do and what is the UI and what is the needs? But what we have seen in different customer cases, we start with those and then they realize, okay, that is... Now I want more. Now I also want the next thing and the next thing. And then we shift actually to another tool. So don't be scared to change tool also along the way. Of course, not change all the time, but start small and try some of the features as well.
Yeah, and maybe to add on top of that, as you said, so thinking about the business case and why do you need the data catalog? So if it's a small startup or if it's an organization that is still using or is like a mature enough to use just like a really simple application landscape. So does it really need a data catalog? So I think that's the first step to think that what is the value that the data catalog brings to the current situation, and after that we can then start to think that what is the the need and what type of data catalog tool there is to be used, because there is like often if the organization is really small, the cataloging could be done in Confluence or Excel, or there can be like the data catalog does not equal some technological tool, but it's more like a way of managing the metadata.
What?
Yes, so then there was a question, would be great to get your view on how mature the open source data catalogs are. Do you consider them a good way to get started for a large enterprise? If I start with that one, so I think the maturity really depends on the data catalog. So there are some that are already quite mature, but then I think the biggest problem is kind of the limit on the functionality. So they are really quite narrow tools, but what they do rather well. So I would say that they are not immature, but they are maybe a bit limited from the functionality perspective in general. And for a large enterprise, I would say that it's okay to get started if the maturity regarding this like a metadata management or data cataloging is not on a sufficient level. So you first want to start to get the fundamentals, think about the governance, like how do you operate this kind of like way of doing things. And for that, this open source catalog might be a good and cost-efficient alternative. And then when you start to recognize that, okay, these are the features we are not currently having from this catalog, but we need, then you can start like considering some more comprehensive tool to the selection.
One thing to consider with the open source is also from a security point of view, check with your security people if you can implement this, being finance or a pension or certain industries like medical. So also take care that you don't start a journey that you'd have to stop for security reasons, I would say. That's another one.
Yeah. Yeah, then there is a question, what data modeling tools are you using? Question mark Erwin, question mark, do you use Data Vault 2 or do you prefer something else?
So data modeling is a broad term. So here when we talk about modeling, it's not only the physical modeling in this question around the data vault and the physical, the blue side I had. It's also about the conceptual, so from a business point of view, also to the logical, where we connect with attributes and also what kind of types of data we have, and down to the physical layer. So when we talk about modeling here, it's a little bit more broader than the question. So it's not only about data vault modeling. It's not about the technical tools only. It's more connecting the different layers from business all the way to technology. And this is also what doesn't come out of the box in these data catalog tools. Data lineage is a little bit more out of the box, where we have from system to system, but this is where we need the human's brains, like how do we connect the business terms back down to the technology components as well. So when asked, it could be many different tools, and it can even also be just a simple drawing once in a while. I think we need to soon finish up. Do you have a very short last one?
What's the time frame for starting, and when are we at the end goal of being self-sufficient? So basically, what would be the timeline for the
big question. That's a very big question. So a lot of the customer wants a POC for a few months, but also take care that this is not just something you do for a few months and then, okay, then these are programs. These are not projects. It's a change. It's a change in culture, but it also evens up, our daily work. So we don't have to. I have a customer saying I run around to ask 6 different people where to find my data, and it takes me 3 hours. So let's try to make that a KPI, not to run around for 6 different people, but actually have one place to go. But how long? It depends also on the company size, I would say, and the complexity as well. Do you have a modern data stack? Do you have a lot of on-prem solutions? There's much complexity.
As a rule of thumb, I would say that getting one business area to be more or less self-sufficient within the data catalog, it takes maybe 3 months to half a year time. But of course, before that, you need to make the base ground. and then you can start with the certain business areas. And of course, that depends whether it's some like for example, finance is often a huge business area and can be more complex, and then there is more simpler ones. But I'll take one more because that's that was a really good one and important one as well. So how to motivate the data generators to catalog their data, and I think that's a very good question on how to build these incentives. And of course, the easiest way is the stick. So having this some kind of regulation or compliance requirement, which is quite easy to get people to understand that you must do this or otherwise you will get some penalty. But then how to make it in a good way, for me, the best ways would be, one way would be this like a gamification that is coming more and more to the data catalogs, to make it like a little bit of game or competition that who has their metadata best managed. Or the other one is to be able to connect to this kind of ecosystem. So some, maybe in the integration world, we are talking about this kind of plug and play principle. So if you are connecting your metadata in the ecosystem and you are bringing a new system, you can easily just plug into that ecosystem and discuss with basically any system that is existing within that ecosystem. Okay, we are not there yet in the practice, but as a principle or idea, that's something that could be also a driving force for this like data generators.
And even though it's very interesting, I think we will say thank you both online for all the many participants and also on site, and reach out if any questions. We will be there to help. Yep. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.